On this Friday night, thousands of teacher positions are on the chopping block as protests against education changes ramp up.
He needs to know that all these students are impacted, and that's why all of us are raising our voices.
Students continuing to speak out today. Tomorrow, it's teachers that plan to sound off at a Queen's Park protest. Plus,
I know that people paying similar rent to me that I am here are living on couches.
Renovating units to jack up the price. It's totally legal, but renovictions are pushing some tenants to the edge. And the Leafs play their final regular season game tomorrow. Fans wonder if the team is up to the challenge of the playoffs. Good evening, I'm Mike Wise. It's looking like 3,500 teaching positions could be eliminated over the next 4 years. The provincial government says that plan will save millions. But critics say it's the students who will take the hit, and many of them are trying to speak out. Ali Chasson spoke to students at York Humber High School today.
So it felt tense at school today?
Yeah, because yesterday was more like loud and open, but then today was kind of a little scarier, I guess, because like it's kind of hitting you like
the reality.
It's happening, like unless we do something.
I'm a track and field athlete myself, so I know that in order to actually get teachers that are willing to participate in the sport and help us out, they have to spend a lot of time with us because there's so many practices and so many meets. So in order to be able to keep that going with the budget cuts, I'm worried that we may not be able to.
Questions are swirling. What does this mean for school teams and clubs? What about class size? The average for grades 9 to 12 will go up to 28 from the current average of 22.
Like last semester, having 30 people in my French class, there wasn't a lot of time for individual students who were struggling with French. So if there's 40 people in a class, like I don't even know how that'll work.
We now know the Ontario government plans to phase out almost 3,500 full-time teaching jobs over the next 4 years in order to save hundreds of millions of dollars.
Our teachers are already stretched pretty thin.
NDP education critic Merritt Stiles says it's at the expense of student development.
It is often teachers that end up spending that extra time to provide students with that extracurricular help, and we know that if they're tired, if they have to prep for bigger classes, it's going to be more difficult.
There are about 5,000 schools in Ontario, so this means less than one teaching position per school.
We know this hits certain students harder than others.
U of T professor Arlo Kempf specializes in education.
Fewer teachers in the building means that certain courses that maybe had a smaller class size, they won't be able to run those. Teachers will be able to do less. And the options for students who maybe most need those extra hooks and tools for engaging in school, there's a good chance that those will be unavailable increasingly for students in our schools.
Kempf says concerned parents should be talking to their school boards about what the local impact is, and for the kids to keep it up. After the memo came out, the Minister of Education issued a statement explaining that this is going to be done through attrition, meaning they just won't be filling the 3,500 jobs that will naturally become vacant after teachers either retire or quit over the next 4 years. And all of these numbers are subject to change. They are still in the consultation process, and that is another thing that we learned from this memo. Ali Chasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Many teachers, no doubt, very nervous at talk of those job reductions. A rally is planned for tomorrow at Queen's Park with thousands of educators expected to protest the government's plan changes. Adrian Chung has that story tonight.
First, the students had their say this week, staging walkouts from class to protest the province's planned cuts to education.
Teachers are the building blocks of education and for students, and they support us. And having less teachers means that we'll have less support.
Now, it's teachers from across the province who will rally against the Ford government on Saturday.
The road that this government is going down is going to cut off paths to student futures. They're talking about massively increasing class sizes. That means significant decrease in the amount of individual attention that students get.
A provincial memo revealed almost 3,500 teaching jobs will be cut within 4 years, and there are other points of contention between the Ford government and teachers, including larger class sizes and an overhaul to the math and sex ed curriculum. Education Minister Lisa Thompson defended the decisions today, saying Ontario teacher unions have been handed control of the education system for the past 15 years. Their priority has not been student success, and as a result, our province's math scores are dropping, and our students find themselves falling further and further behind.
Fact that the policies she's putting forward are bad. So she tries to create a narrative about conflict between the government and unions. It's not about that.
The Teachers Federation is expecting thousands to be at Queen's Park for the rally. It could be among the largest demonstrations by Ontario teachers since 1997. It was then that over 120,000 teachers across the province went on strike to protest the Mike Harris government's education reforms. Bischoff was on the picket lines as a teacher in 1997 and says he sees parallels with the Harris and Ford governments on the education file.
We have a government, again, that doesn't understand that education is not just a cost, it's an investment. When you invest in education, there's a return on that.
The changes will be finalized along with the provincial budget on April 11th. Until then, students and teachers will likely keep the pressure on Queen's Park. Adrian Chung, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto's community housing is getting more than $1 billion. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau making that announcement today alongside the mayor at a TCH building in Scarborough.
It's huge news for almost 60,000 families living across the city who are going to see much-needed renovations.
This is a great day to make life better, to build up our community, and not just to build it up in terms of repairs and in terms of a better quality of life for people, but it is going to do a lot right here in this very building.
The $1.3 billion funding infusion is aimed at helping Toronto community housing with a $1.6 billion repair backlog. All that funding will be distributed over a 10-year period. The money will come from the $13.2 billion National Housing Co-Investment Fund launched last May. It will go to renovating some 58,000 TCH units. The work is scheduled to begin this spring. Anti-poverty advocates protested outside of a gourmet pop-up restaurant under the Gardiner Expressway tonight. It is set up just a short distance away from an area that used to be the site of a homeless encampment known as Tent City.
So we're out here and we're calling our event, their event is called Dinner with a View, and we're calling our event Dinner with a View off the rich. And what we're trying to point out or expose is the brutality of our city and the brazenness of the wealthy.
The dome dining pop-up called Dinner with a View has become controversial because of just how close it was to an area that was recently cleared of its homeless population. Organizers, however, said in a statement that the restaurant is run by a charity and not the City of Toronto, and that no encampments were removed to make way for the pop-up restaurant. Nick Cernkovich is here now with your first look at the forecast. With the drizzle tonight, I had trouble seeing the tops of the office towers downtown. Nick?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. What we're looking at tonight is just a little bit in the way of some fog patches developing across the GTA and especially areas southwest of the GTA, and some lingering drizzle in some areas as well. Cloud cover remains through tonight, but the good news is by tomorrow we get the sunshine back. Now through the morning hours, expect to see still some cloud cover and fog. By the afternoon, though, that's when we get to see the sunshine and temperatures popping up into the double digits. Tonight, 3 degrees, again, risk of fog, especially in outlying areas. Tomorrow, 12 degrees, and the sunshine returning through the afternoon hours. And that, by the way, is not as warm as it gets. It does get warmer into next week. We'll have your full forecast along with some rainy details. That's coming up in just a bit.
All right, thanks, Nick. A Toronto insolvency manager says he is seeing an increase in cases of tenants at the brink of bankruptcy. And it's all because of renovictions. That's when a landlord evicts a tenant to renovate a property. Farah Marawi has more.
Hello. Hey, Paul, it's Farah.
For 9.5 years, musician Paul Kalinsky has called this apartment on Dovercourt home.
Yeah, so welcome to my little place.
But maybe not for much longer.
It says that they want us to end our tenancy, and by this notice, it's by the 28th of February of this year, which is now passed.
The building's new owner sent out eviction notices saying they need to replace the wiring system.
How much rent are you paying right now?
I am paying $830 monthly plus hydro.
A quick search of the building online shows a bachelor unit now rents for more than $1,600, nearly double what Kolinsky pays.
I know that people paying similar rent to me that I am here are living on couches, in other places.
So this is a basic outline of how a consumer proposal works.
This insolvency manager says rent-evictions can lead to worse scenarios than couch surfing.
So you've actually worked with people who, after being rent-evicted, had to go to like a payday loan type place, and that has ultimately led them to bankruptcy.
Yeah, oftentimes that's the last straw.
He says he usually sees people after a divorce or a job loss, but now he's seeing people spiral into financial ruin after being rent-evicted.
Probably seen half a dozen in the last few months, and that's a lot. Doesn't sound like much, but I've never seen it before.
Terrio says it's a 1-2 punch for tenants who've lived at the same place for years. They're entering a market that's way more pricey and forced to come up with first and last month's rent.
Our number one piece of advice to tenants is do not move out.
The trend doesn't surprise those at the Parkdale Legal Clinic. While some rent-evictions are perfectly legal, it says it's seeing a spike in illegal rent-evictions.
So it's a very destructive process that has severe implications for people's lives.
You're an exceptionally good boy.
That's exactly what Kolinsky's doing, staying put.
I'm in for the fight.
He considers himself a middle-class renter, but each day he says he feels closer to the brink.
And I think, we traditionally were not among the part of society that was on the cutting edge, but the cutting edge is moving closer to us.
Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
Coming up, this former Marshall's employee says he was fired for being gay. Now he has filed a human rights complaint. We'll have that story after the break. I went back to school tonight, attending an event at Ryerson University, joined by hundreds of others attending events at all 4 Toronto universities this evening. It was all part of a program called Cram Toronto. It's meant to shine a spotlight on some of the research work going on right across the city. This wasn't a bunch of stuffy lectures. We actually caught up with some attendees at York University.
I learned some things that I didn't know before.
The opportunity to immerse yourself in another culture just makes you realize, how much is out there that we don't even know. Right?
But it becomes a window into all sorts of identities, into all sorts of issues, into gender, into politics, into economics, into immigration, and that's really my role.
Patrick Acedo was presenting his research on Filipino folk dance at York University. Attendees there were also treated to a sound painting demonstration, virtual reality shows, astronomy, all sorts of interactive lectures as well. An Oshawa man claims he was fired from his job because of his sexual orientation. Michael Gale worked at Marshall's back in 2018. He says managers there started treating him differently when they found out he was gay. As Natalie Nanowski tells us, he is now looking for justice.
For Michael Gale, landing a job at Marshall's felt like a step in the right direction.
If you actually go to Gay Pride, you go to any of those situations, you actually see Marshall's, HomeSense, and Winners. They're plastered all over their Gay Pride flags. So I knew it was going to be an accepting place.
And he says it was until management found out he's gay.
I had my nails painted black, and I walked in and I said hey to Crystal, the head manager at the time. She said hey, like everything was good, but as I walked past, she started a conversation about how nail polish on men is disgusting and making all these other comments.
Even his co-workers noticed.
Well, yeah, they made fun of his eyeliner enough times. They asked me why he dyes his hair.
Eventually, Gale filed an HR complaint. An investigation found that management, quote, participated in hurtful conversations. But things didn't get better.
It was just more of being treated differently.
In the fall, a few months after his complaint, Gale got into a disagreement with a manager and contacted HR, saying he had been given an impossible task. But this time, Marshall's fired him, saying, quote, he wasn't modeling the company's values.
The thought of my sexual orientation just made everybody uncomfortable after that incident. It just They were trying to push me out of the way.
Since that moment in October, Gail has had a difficult time going back to work.
Every time you go near somebody now, when you're in a workplace, you always have to question, like, what are they thinking? Like, are they judging me the way
Gail has taken his case to Ontario's Human Rights Tribunal. He'll find out if they'll hear it in the coming months. Marshals, however, won't comment on the matter because of that. Natalie Nanowski, CBC News, Oshawa.
Game 1's a couple days from now, and we need to be ready for it.
What's wrong with the Leafs? I'm Greg Ross. The postseason is just days away, and the Leafs have only 3 wins in their last 10 games. Should fans be worried as they get set for a tough playoff series against the rival Bruins? We'll have that story coming up.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
The Raptors taking their 5-game winning streak into Charlotte tonight. Kawhi Leonard goes behind back before putting it home with the right. Wraps up by 8 at the break. But the Hornets would come back. Raptors down by 1. Kyle Lowry with a bounce pass to Ibaka. He slams it home. Help out the Raptors here, but less than 10 seconds to play. Jeremy Lamb drills a triple to put Charlotte back on top. The Hornets edge the Raptors tonight, 113-111. And the Blue Jays in Cleveland, rookie Trent Thornton getting a start, getting some defensive help here, but he also managed to set a franchise record for strikeouts in his Blue Jays debut with 8. Freddie Galvis helps put Toronto on top in the 5th with a nice towering shot to right. And that made it 2-1. Cleveland, though, would go on to tie it and then go on to win in the bottom of the 9th. Carlos Santana with a walk-off home run. Cleveland wins 3-2. Well, not a good night for Toronto fans, and hockey fans also thinking the same thing. Stanley Cup playoffs start next week, and with just 3 wins in their last 10 games, the Maple Leafs seem to be stumbling rather than skating into the postseason. Greg Ross spoke to some nervous fans at the Scotiabank Arena today. They're worried it might be a quick exit from the playoffs.
Boston's going to smoke us. 4 straight.
I don't think they're hardened enough yet.
It seems like they've lost a stride.
That's what some Leaf fans were saying today. A huge contrast from the way Leaf fans were talking last summer.
We are winning the cup.
That was just moments after the team announced they had signed free agent forward John Tavares, joining stars Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner on a team many thought destined to contend for a championship.
You placed a bet on the Leafs winning the Stanley Cup at the beginning of this season.
My girlfriend did it on my behalf at the Bellagio. Pays $55 on a $5 bet.
At one time, the Leafs were considered one of the favorites. This week, Vegas odds have them down to 16-1.
Think you're going to win your $55 this year?
Can I talk to you after game 1?
No. While many fans may be unsure, players on the Leafs say they have no worries.
How concerning is it as a team when you're struggling going into the playoffs? You guys just have 3 wins in your last 10 games. Is there any kind of concern here, any sense of urgency?
Use the word struggling. I don't know if that's really what I'm taking out of it. I think you're focusing too much on the wins and losses. I think what we've been focusing on is the way we've been playing.
And is there a sense of urgency building in this room right now because of the way things have gone?
No. No. We're confident in our group. We're confident in our structure.
But there does seem to be some concern when it comes to goaltending.
Well, just over a period of time, obviously, things weren't going the right way.
And that's why Leafs backup netminder Garrett Sparks has been taken out of the lineup for the next 10 days. Return scores! Sparks led the Toronto Marlies to the Calder Cup last year, but so far this year, he hasn't adjusted well to life in the NHL.
We needed him to get it back. He needs to get it back, and so it's real important as an organization that we help him out and that he helps himself, so that's where that's at.
Sparks will work with the Leafs goaltending coaches for the next 10 days on a conditioning stint. In the meantime, the team has called up goaltender Michael Hutchison from the Marlies, who will be the Leafs' backup goaltender when they play their final game of the regular season tomorrow night in Montreal. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Nick is back now with a look at your long-range forecast. We saw some drizzle tonight, but a decent weekend may be on tap. Nick?
Well, we talked about that fog for tonight, and that's all part of a weak system that's moving through. But in fact, what we're seeing here is some moisture coming up from the south, and that's bringing with it some warmer temperatures, also a more humid air mass as well. And we've seen a little bit of drizzle with this throughout the day today. But as we put this into motion, I mentioned off the top there, we're expecting to see some cloud cover for the morning, clearing by the afternoon, mild temperatures moving in, though what you see here, this rain band, is actually a warm front. So anywhere underneath it is that warmer, more humid air mass, and we're going to see the effects of that coming up through the next couple of days. Now, some sunny breaks tomorrow, but by Sunday night, around about 8 p.m., 8 p.m., we're looking at rain showers move through the GTA. The risk of a thunderstorm in here as well. Good news in all of this, though, is that it's mostly an overnight rain event from Sunday night through until Monday morning, and then tapering showers as we move through Monday afternoon. Total rainfall amounts are going to be in the neighborhood of about 10, maybe 15 millimeters of rain. The risk for thunderstorms, though, so locally heavy downpours are possible with this through the overnight period. And that's really all we have in the way of sort of persistent or organized rain coming up in the 5-day forecast. Southwestern Ontario tonight, very similar to what we're seeing around the Golden Horseshoe. Fog patches, and especially in outlying areas, that's where we're going to see it. Temperatures hovering around 5 degrees, the risk for a little bit of drizzle as well through the overnight period. By tomorrow, though, sky cover clearing out, temperatures sitting around 15, 16, maybe even 17 degrees in there if we get more in the way of sunshine than what I'm expecting. For overnight tonight across the Golden Horseshoe, sitting around 2, 3 degrees, and then as we move through tomorrow afternoon, temperatures up to about 12, 13 degrees. Now, again, if we see more sunshine than what I'm expecting, these numbers could be more like 13, 14 degrees for tomorrow afternoon. There's a look at your forecast for the next 5 days. 13 on Sunday, again with that cloud cover. Now, Sunday night through Monday, overnight rain, the risk of a thunder shower as well. Monday, though, very mild day at 16 degrees. And I know this looks like rain, but that's, if anything, a morning event. By the afternoon, we get the sunshine back for Monday and a mix of sun and cloud heading into Tuesday and Wednesday, but a little bit cooler in terms of temperatures. Mike.
All right. Thanks, Nick. A special reunion today for a London woman, one she had been waiting for more than 10 years. Debbie Asemwe was in Rwanda when the genocide broke out back in 1994. She lost her parents and 8 of her siblings. Her brother Robert initially survived the bloodshed but died years later from the injuries he sustained. He left behind 3 daughters and 1 son. Debbie took them in and cared for them, but in 2008 she left Rwanda for Canada, settling in London, but never forgetting the promise she made to her brother's 4 children that someday she would bring them to Canada as well.
Overwhelmed, I'm joyful, I'm happy, I'm extremely excited. Even now, I feel like I'm dreaming, well, it's real life. It's happening right now here in Toronto, Canada.
Now, Simwe has adopted all 4 children. They'll be living with her and her daughter in London. What a beautiful family reunion. Well, before we go, a reminder, the annual Easter Seals Telethon takes place this Sunday. It starts at 10 a.m. right after Coronation Street. Keeps going until 5. Funds raised will go straight towards Easter Seals, helping to make a difference for children and youth with physical disabilities in Ontario. That's it for our newscast tonight. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you back here on Monday.